Welcome to another audio-only episode of the Zen Watercooler podcast. I hope you're having a great day. And if you're outside doing yard work and you're listening to this, maybe you're driving around town or you're doing a workout, I say good for you and thank you for spending time with me. I'm hoping that this episode will be a little bit unique than the other ones because normally I just focus on print on demand. However, something happened recently that was pretty interesting and I thought it might be worth further exploration. So I'm really going to cover two things in this podcast. Number one, I get asked regularly about having political designs, and they could be relatively mundane topics like the copyrights, the trademarks involved in certain trademarked images or text. And alternatively, people will ask, is it even a good idea to pursue political designs in the print-on-demand space? Will it help my store? Will it hurt my store? Will people abandon my shop if they see designs of a politician that I don't particularly like? So that's the first thing I'm going to try to tackle in this podcast. What are my thoughts on those things? The second piece I was absolutely not expecting. I recently posted a video about a company called Sticker Mule. Now, I've posted a few videos about Sticker Mule. I actually really like their products. Did a t-shirt review a little while ago, and then they've got a studio where you can create some designs, and they've also got an online store, so you can go in there and create designs, sell them through the online store, and make some commissions or referral sales. So I was surprised when I posted my video and I got a comment about Sticker Mule as a company, and the allegation is that Sticker Mule openly is supporting an American politician named Donald Trump who's running for president in 2024. I have to admit, I'm not involved in American politics. I'm actually not an American. I live in Canada, which is one country to the north of the United States. So I don't generally spend any bandwidth reading about or watching anything about American politics. To be honest, I don't really find politics that interesting. So I was surprised when I got some feedback. And I'm going to read you what the feedback was on the video right now. Okay, so this is a comment that says, I love both your channels, Mr. Watercooler Stacks. Oh yeah, I did want to mention, I've got a second channel. It's called Crafty Stacks. So it's Crafty and then STAX. So if you're ever looking for extra videos of mine, there's a second channel. Okay, so it says, I love both your channels, Mr. Watercooler /Stacks. But Sticker Mule flouts multiple federal and consumer protection laws by using consumer data to fundraise for wannabe dictator Donald Trump. If you missed it somehow last month, Google Sticker Mule email controversy. And for Americans, this means that all the profits they earn through our purchases are used towards the goal of ending democracy here. So Sticker Mule can pound sand. Sticker Giant gets all my money from here on in. I have to admit, I don't really know much about Sticker Giant, so I can't really comment on that. But I was surprised when I got this pretty well-worded response. Sometimes people just tell me and I'm an idiot and they move on with their lives. But this one actually had like some actual meat to the substance of the feedback. So I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So I did Google the Sticker Mule email controversy. And I have to admit, I thought, oh, surely this is fake news or this is somebody photoshopped something. So I was surprised when I saw an article in the newspaper or online. I'm so old, I'm calling it a newspaper. But when I went online and I looked up the news, there's an article on Forbes exactly about this, and it looks real. Okay, so I'm going to read the article here from Forbes, or at least a little bit of it here. I'll take an excerpt of it. So if you Google Sticker Mule email and then you look under news, it will be under the Forbes article. So this one says, Sticker Mule's political stance undermines workplace inclusion and customer trust. This is from July 19th, 2024. And it says, earlier this week, Anthony Costanino, co-founder of Sticker Mule, sent an email and a text message titled Trump 2024 to the company's marketing contact list. The email, shown in its entirety below, touted his support for Donald Trump, proclaiming that, and then he goes on in the article to suggest what the email said. So I'm actually going to read the email rather than read the article about the email. And obviously I'm not part of the mailing list because I did not get this email, so I was surprised by the comment on YouTube, and thankful, by the way. if you guys ever have a comment or a question and you might think that it's negative, I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me if somebody doesn't agree with my video or if somebody thinks that I'm way off base about something. It's like, great, that's the whole idea of the YouTube comments. I would just ask that you don't be a complete jerk about it because, I am a human being and I do have feelings, but I'm doing my best. But if you don't agree with something, by all means, you can throw it in the comments section. So I'm trying to explore this to see if this is legitimate. So I'm going to read the email now from Anthony, who's the co-founder of Sticker Mule. Okay, so the email is titled Trump 2024, and then it says, "Hi, Donald Trump was shot. I don't care what your political views are, but the hate for Trump and his supporters has gone too far. People are terrified to admit they support Trump. I've been scared myself. Americans shouldn't live in fear. I support Trump. Many at Sticker Mule do. Many at Sticker Mule also support Biden. The political hate needs to stop." This is, by the way, this was sent on Monday, July the 15th. So this is before Joe Biden dropped out of the race. And then he writes, "Hopefully this email helps. By the way, this week get one shirt for $4, normally $19. I suggest buying one that shows you support Trump. The more people realize that millions of kind-hearted, compassionate people support Trump, the sooner the hate will end. Awesome people all over the world love Trump. Don't limit your friendships and diminish your happiness by indulging in political hate. Vocalize your support. Stop the hate." And then he signs it, Anthony Constantino, co-founder of Sticker Mule. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here in this podcast. So I'm going to have some comments specifically about my opinion on this whole thing in the following next little bit. So the first thing I want to mention is this is a really contentious issue. The question is, should you even create political designs? Because if you do, if you've got a Redbubble shop or a TeePublic store or a Merch by Amazon shop or anywhere, maybe you're selling them on your website, you are, in a sense, your brand. So you have to ask yourself, why do people buy print-on-demand products? Really, it's three reasons. They're either buying it for the product itself, a t-shirt, a water bottle, backpack. So it's the product, and then the design goes on the product. The other option is they're paying money for the design, and the fact that it's on a t-shirt is great, but they might buy the same thing on a fine art print. So sometimes it's the product, and sometimes it's the design. Now, the third one isn't really super applicable if you're first starting out. But if you get an established Etsy shop or a website or even a Redbubble store, the third reason is that people may be supporting you. They may like your artwork, your style. If you have a social media presence, they may like you. And so there's a bit of brand loyalty there. And people say, oh, okay, I like this person's art. It makes me feel good to purchase it. So I'm going to follow that shop. I'm going to follow what they're doing. They become, in a sense, a fan. So it can be a little bit of a betrayal of trust if they think you're one thing and then you put up designs that are in direct violation of what they think you are. So I think that might be what's happening here at Sticker Mule is most people think Sticker Mule is a company, and I can speak for myself, I don't generally think there's a human being running the company who has political views. I don't think about it day to day. And you can also map this out to anywhere in the world. If you go fill up your car at the local gas station, well, the person who runs that gas station has a political leaning, probably. They probably vote, or they at least care about their community, or they're doing something that you may or may not agree with. Now, you don't know what those things are, but everybody has opinions about something. Now, I want to point out, you may have an opinion on something and it's a very strong opinion, or you may have an opinion about something and it's a very weak opinion. And what I mean by weak is you just don't really care. So use me as an example, right? I mean, do I like Donald Trump? Do I hate Donald Trump? To be honest, I don't really think about it. I don't spend my days watching Fox News. I'm not watching American television. I'm typically worrying about, am I going to be able to play hockey that night or go for a walk with my friends? I'm just not thinking about politics. Now, maybe I should, right? So, maybe that's a criticism on me that I should spend more time worrying about the state of the world, and I should be spending less time spending in my own personal life just trying to make print-on-demand designs and go for a walk in the evening. I don't know. So that's something maybe I need to ruminate on. Generally speaking, customers will purchase print-on-demand products because of an emotional element. So use yourself as an example. If you Google funny t-shirts and you laugh because you really like that t-shirt and you think, wow, I really need to buy that, well, there's an emotional response. You could like your favorite football team, or you could find a funny design online, but it's an emotional response. People like it, they're laughing, makes them feel good. Everybody wants to feel special. That's why personalized products on Etsy are so popular. Or even something that maybe isn't personalized, but might be semi-personalized, like World's Greatest Ant, for example. It's a very specific design. And if you're an ant and you get that t-shirt for Christmas, you think, wow, somebody thought of me personally. I feel special. So that's one of the main reasons that people will buy print-on-demand products, is that they feel special. There's an emotional element to it. Now, how does that translate into the political arena? Well, there are people out there that are very opinionated about politics. They identify as a conservative or a Republican or a liberal or a Democrat. These terms are usually country specific. Like in Canada, for example, they don't have Democrats and Republicans. It's not a thing. We've got different political parties in Canada. So it's true that some people love displaying their allegiance, just like a sports team. I'm going to pick a couple teams at random here. If you're a Manchester United fan, for example, if you like football or soccer, then if you're going to wear Manchester United, you're going to get two reactions from people. Well, I guess three reactions. But the one will be people will go, yay! Other people will go, boo! And then the vast majority of people will go, I don't really care. I had this happen the other day. I actually brought a friend to what we call urgent care, which is kind of like a hospital. And I'm sitting in the waiting room, and I happened to have a NFL hoodie on, and it has a team logo on it. And a total random stranger walked by as they were leaving the urgent care, and they put their fist up in the air and shouted the name of the team. And I have to be honest, I was completely stunned because I totally forgot that I was even wearing the hoodie. So it's not like I was walking around advertising on purpose my allegiance, my hardcore, I will die before I give up the allegiance to this team. It's like, it was nice colors. I put on the jersey. I wasn't really thinking about it, or the hoodie rather, and I just moved on with my life. So it's an emotional response, right? Actually, when I travel, I don't wear branded clothing very often because I don't want to elicit a negative reaction from people. So if I wear like a rock band or a sports team, I'll typically be careful about when I wear it out in public, because I don't want people to come up to me and shout the blah, blah, blah team sucks and you're an idiot. It's like, I don't really want to have an argument with a complete stranger at the train station in Europe somewhere, right? So it's one of those things where you have to be careful when you're selling print-on-demand items, in the sense that you could, in theory, alienate people from your store. If you've got a bunch of really rude designs or a bunch of really funny designs, there are going to be people that don't like those designs. So I do think, one of the pieces of advice that I would give is you do have to decide, what sort of seller do you want to be? Do you want to be irreverent and cheeky? Do you want to have a beautiful store that is properly branded, and you're going after more what I call vanilla customers, like the regular folk that just want to buy a nice gift for their niece? Or do you want to have an edgy store that is going to turn off some people, but it's also going to attract some other people as well? There's no right or wrong answer. This is not a trick question. You just need to make a decision and say, okay, what do I want to do? So if you've got beautiful flower watercolor designs in your shop, and then you mix in politician names with a big middle finger saying they suck, well, it's probably not the same audience. Now, it might be. Like, there might be people that love watercolor quilts, and they also love big middle fingers of the American flag, and we don't like this guy, and we don't like that. I don't know. But chances are those are two completely different types of reasons to purchase a gift. One would be the gift for your family member because Auntie June is getting married and we want to have a nice flower purse. And the other one is, I want to put a bumper sticker on my car that tells the whole world that I don't like a certain politician. They're not usually the same sort of reasons that you're buying a design. Okay, so one thing I don't want to do in this podcast is I don't want to just be wishy-washy and say, well, it's personal preference and, well, it's up to everybody to make their own decision. That's not really helpful. So I'm trying to give some actual advice in these podcasts, and this one's no different. So it is personal preference if you'd like to create political designs. I will say, it's my personal opinion, I do think that stores, so your Etsy shop or your Redbubble store, I do think those are overrated. I think most people are searching for specific designs, and then there are people who also follow the shops. But I would say, generally speaking, if you've got a branded store and you stand behind your brand, you'll attract the type of customer that you want to attract. So all I would say is that if you really enjoy politics, if you really enjoy having cheeky designs, irreverent designs, negative designs, whatever they are, then just brand your store that way and you will attract those customers who really like that stuff. Don't confuse your clientele. Go all in on what you would like to do. Maybe you don't want to have any politics, and that's fine. Maybe you want to have politics designs that are only positive. That's fine too. Or maybe you want to have designs that are cheeky, negative, and again, that's fine. I don't have a personal preference. You just want to make sales, and it needs to be aligned to your values, to your ethics. So I'm not going to tell you what to sell. I'm just going to say whatever you sell, you want to make sure that you're okay with it and that you're standing behind your products and your designs. Now, it does raise a larger ethical question. So I'm going to pull back for a second, and I'm going to ask, when you are doing print on demand, when you're making designs, when you're uploading designs, when you're selling products, yes, the goal is to make some money. But let's use an extreme example. Would you sell anything in order to make money? Forget about print on demand. I just mean in the world. Would you sell illegal drugs? Would you sell human beings? Would you sell drinking water if it meant that people were going thirsty? Like, there's all sorts of ethical questions you can ask yourself. And I think most of us would agree that you don't want to sell anything just because you're going to make a buck. You want to have some ethics, and you want to align what you're selling to your personal ethics and your personal morals. So there are people who don't want to sell political designs, and especially negative political designs, because they might feel that they're stoking the flames of controversy, or they might even be promoting hate. And that's a very real thing. So yes, we want to make money, but we also want to align ourselves with our values. Okay, so this brings us now to the Sticker Mule controversy. So I want to ask, is the email where the owner of Sticker Mule blatantly says that they support Trump, is that offensive? And some people are going to say, yes, it is. And some people are going to say, no, it's not. So I'm just going to ask some questions. And if you're maybe driving in a car and you've got your significant other sitting there, maybe these are discussion points and you can ask each other this question. I think these are really fun things to discuss. So let me ask you, would the email have been equally offensive if they had been asking about the other politician instead of Trump? So if they had said, at the time it was Biden, but now it's Kamala Harris, if they had said, I support Kamala Harris, and some of my employees support Donald Trump, but if you buy a t-shirt, you're going to support Kamala Harris, would that be just as offensive? It's an interesting question. I don't know. How much of the outrage is because of this one politician versus the idea that the owner of the company is making their political affiliation known? Because you have to wonder, right? If you're out in the world right now, if you're going for a walk or if you're driving your car, take a look around. You're going to be passing businesses as you're driving around town. Well, every single one of them has an owner, and every single one of those businesses, their owner has a political affiliation. It might even be a strong political affiliation. Now, we don't know what those are. So that leads me now to the next point, which is the email offensive because the owner has made their political affiliation known? So it's one thing if the owner supports Donald Trump. Is it another thing if they tell you publicly that they support Donald Trump? It's an interesting question. The other thing that might be offensive is that the owner of Sticker Mule sends out an email under the Sticker Mule banner. So in some sense, you can argue that he is the company. But what about the employees that work for the company? It's very realistic to think that at least some of them were not happy with the email that went out. Imagine if you work for a company and your boss sent out an email saying, we here at the company support blah, 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 whatever it is. Could be a political issue, or it could be a human being. Well, is that offensive? Because this employee's boss is now speaking on behalf of the employee. I know I wouldn't like that. It would be like YouTube comes out and says, YouTube supports blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, well, YouTube doesn't know what I personally support. Yes, I'm part of the YouTube network, but I'm an independent artist within my own independent thoughts. I don't really work for YouTube. It's not like they're my boss. So if my boss did come out and say that they supported somebody, I'd be a little rankled about that. I think that the employees have a moral right to say, hey, this isn't really how I feel, and it's inappropriate for the boss to come out and say what they think. And even though they mention in the email that their employees support both candidates, I think the real offensive or the real inappropriate piece of the email is that down at the bottom it says, show your support for Trump by buying a t-shirt. If it was me, if I was the owner of the company, I wouldn't have told everybody my political opinion. I would have just said, if you support democracy or if you support peace, buy a t-shirt. I'm a little more greedy, I guess. I'd just be like, look, I just want to make a sale. And can we all just get along and can you all just buy a shirt? That's what I would be thinking. I wouldn't necessarily be publicly backing a candidate because it's not really appropriate because you're not in the political arena. You're a sticker company that makes t-shirts and stickers. So maybe stick to your lane. I don't know. It's interesting, right? Like I'm a YouTuber and you might even argue that I'm an influencer, but I'm an influencer in the world of print on demand. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. A, I don't really care. And two, I'm not an expert. So my opinion should not be worth any more than anybody else's opinion. So it's an interesting discussion point you might want to have with your friends over a couple pops. Is having the belief offensive or is sharing the belief offensive? And I think it could make for a really good discussion. On the one hand, you've got people saying, look, I don't want to know what your political affiliation is. And then on the other hand, we've got people that say, I think it's totally appropriate to announce what your political affiliation is. If you truly believe in making the world a better place, then you should be trumpeting from the rooftops who you think the candidate should be. It's an interesting question. The other question is, if you buy something from Sticker Mule or Redbubble or TeePublic merch by Amazon, you name the company. It could even be your local liquor store or your local supermarket. Are you supporting the owner? I think you'd say yes. But what about all the other businesses that are in the world? Are you supporting them too by filling up your car with gas or buying the head of cabbage at the local supermarket? What about the employees that work for those companies? Are you supporting them too, or are you only supporting the owner? What if the owner happens to be leaning one way, but all their employees are leaning the other way? What do you do then? Who are you really supporting when you're putting your dollars behind a certain product? It's a very interesting question. All right, so I do want to end this podcast here just by mentioning my own personal opinions about stuff. So if you don't care what my personal opinions are, feel free to hang up and move on with your life, and I totally respect that. But I did want to point out, because I do like talking about myself a little bit in these podcasts to try to make it personal, and people have asked me personal questions. So I'm going to mention a few personal things, and hopefully that'll help out. I am Canadian, so I don't really care about U.S. politics. And again, maybe I should. I'm just not interested in politics as a thing. I don't find it inherently interesting. I'm more into like medieval artwork or graphic design. I do believe that people should have the freedom to support whoever they want in an election, in any country, and that we should be allowed to disagree. And I've seen this happen in my own personal life because I've posted videos in the past, and some people will disagree with me on the video. They'll post a comment down below and they'll say things like, I know this comment's going to get removed, or I know I'm going to get banned, but I'm going to tell you what I think. Well, I don't ban people and I don't really remove comments. The only time I would remove comments is if somebody's spamming the channel with a link to something else. It's like, well, that's not going to happen because this is my YouTube channel and they can promote their own stuff on their own YouTube channel. And the other thing is if they're really obscene, if they're using a ton of profanity or if they're saying something truly hateful, then I would remove it. But otherwise, I don't really care if somebody's got a different opinion than me. That makes the world a better place. I like the idea that we're all different and that we've all got different life experiences. And that's the only way I will learn is by learning from other people and other life experiences. Because unfortunately, I'm not going to live to be 900 years old. I can't live 9 or 10 lifetimes. So I need to rely on other people's life experience in order to make my life better. So I do believe that people should have the freedom to support whoever they want. I think it's inappropriate for a business to speak on behalf of their employees when it comes to anything political. I do think that is something that Sticker Mule stepped out of bounds on, if I'm being totally honest. I would not have appreciated the owner of the company speaking on my behalf. And it's kind of a gray area. Like you could read the email and think, well, he's really saying that both sides, you should support whoever you want. But it's really the last piece of the email where he says, buy a t-shirt for $4 and support Trump. It's like, I'd feel the same level of inappropriateness if they said, buy a t-shirt for $4 and support, and then they listed a charity, or they listed Kamala Harris, or they listed anything else. I'd be like, no, you don't get to speak on the employee's behalf. Now, as a customer, of course, you've got every right to support the company or not support the company. And you've got every right to say, I'm not going to support them at all. So I do think it's weird or inappropriate that the business owner made their political leanings known. I just see that as a high risk, low reward venture. But maybe I'm biased because I don't really care about politics that much. Maybe if somebody was really into politics, they would think, no, it's the best thing you can do is to make your politics known and have a frank discussion. I got, I guess, different things that I'd rather spend my time and energy on. And I do think it's weird when the business owner is speaking on behalf of their employees. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. I do want to say a very big thank you to the nice young lady that posted the comment on the YouTube channel and let me know about it, because it was very interesting to read the Forbes article and then to read the email and go, wow, this is actually a real thing. Somebody went really hard in the paint there, to use a basketball term. Sticker Mule went all out to try to either create controversy, or maybe maybe the owner feels really strongly about this and they really want to be vocal about it. It's a fascinating time that we live in, where we've perhaps got the most divisive politician in the history of U.S. politics. And there are many people out there that are quite angry about the way the world looks right now. So I'm certainly not saying you shouldn't feel that way. You're totally entitled to feel how you want. It's an interesting argument and an interesting ethical dilemma. So if you've got an opinion, I would love to hear it. Feel free to throw it down in the comments below. And if you've got a question or an idea for a future podcast, I would love to hear that as well. I truly appreciate your time. I hope you found this helpful or at least entertaining. And I believe in you. Go ahead and create some great products, make some sales, provide some value in the world. It's pretty amazing. If you stop and think about it for a second, it's pretty amazing to think that if somebody buys a t-shirt, they're wearing your design somewhere in the world. You've touched the life of a stranger in hopefully a positive way. And that's a really cool thing, regardless of how we feel about politics or any opinions. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot for listening. And here's another great podcast that hopefully you'll find interesting and entertaining.